hearing aid?
Yes.
Finish my minute here then. Are we ready to go? Okay. We got two more. Close to the mic.
Exactly.
Seventh grade stuff, you mean, like, you know, eighth grade. Kid stuff is what it is. Sort of like college, freshman. That's right.
Thetford Township Board of Trustees, come back to order.
Okay, so also on the meeting minutes that were passed by the board, there's a motion to have Attorney Gildner hire an outside employment firm. I've confirmed with two board members and several audience members that the word employment firm was never used. I know for a fact that there has been an employment firm hired to investigate Chief Kenny's employment. And, you know, I find it rather disturbing that a couple of the board members don't even know that that was the motion. Obviously, it's difficult to get accurate information from the board members. Lastly, just because I was cut off at 2 minutes, I'd like the board to consider making some sort of sanctions or restrictions on Supervisor Stevens. There's a post on social media on ABC 12 with regards to marijuana in Thetford Township, and would residents welcome it? I gave my opinion as to that I wouldn't want it grown next to my house. I'm not a fan of marijuana, but I know some people who suffer with medical things, and I never, you know, want to take away their medicine. I just believe that residents deserve the right to enjoy their property without the smell. Therefore, I would hope that some sort of regulation to keep it out of residential districts or adjacent to, and even include the restriction on agricultural property. The facilities we have now that sell, I haven't noticed that they've bothered a single person. I was pretty upset about it, I'm not gonna lie, in the beginning, but it doesn't affect anybody's life, so everything's fine. They seem to keep everything in order and they're respectful, so I don't really have a problem with that. Again, back to this post where I gave my opinion, Gary Stevens' wife, Judy Stevens, whom I've never spoke to nor met in my life, attacked me by claiming that I don't even live in Thetford Township. It went as far as to list my addresses of my two homes. It's my business and my right if I want to own a home anywhere I want, as many as I want. I'm a taxpayer, and I deserve the right to voice my opinion on matters in my community without being stalked by the Stevens. Not only is it inappropriate, pathetic, but is extremely in bad taste. The Stevens have a record of attacking individuals who stand against Gary's illegal and unprofessional and inadequate service. A few more examples is the personal vendetta he had against Chief Kenny, and he went against him in person. That's my time up.
Time's up.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Merry Christmas.
Richard Russell, Lake Road. I have to apologize for something that I reported earlier about the union and the police department. I was informed by Officer Eccles sitting here at the back of the meeting that, yes, it's true, they did sign their union cards, but in order to have a union, you have to have 2 employees, and Officer Drinkwine was fired before that could happen. I'm sure it can be argued in court and made it look like it was union busting. In any case, it's wrong to take this township and take us down to only one police officer, no matter what the personal reasons were, no matter what his statements were. It's just wrong. But once again, I'll apologize for improperly reporting that. Now you all know what the timeline was.
Cindy Hicks, Thetford Township. I just wanted to make everyone aware that we did have a public workshop at North Morris Estates on Saturday evening at 7 o'clock, and it was surprisingly well attended. But consequences of it, I guess, the next day, the state police contacted Theo Gantos, who rented the hall and ran the meeting, and the state police told Theo, Supervisor Stevens said that you are threatening him. I'm kind of over this, and I would like to know if the board members are aware of why Brian Drinkwine was fired. Because I was told that Brian Drinkwine was fired because Supervisor Stevens asked Officer Drinkwine to have Officer Echols removed from MCOs. These are the types of things that are going on at this township. You've got one man running the show without a vote of the board. We have 7 board members because we need 7 board members to keep things on track. But the threats to the residents, the screaming at by other township officials to residents, respected residents, educated residents, just trying to get a copy of maybe some minutes. This has got to be over with. When a man comments on Facebook today, I'm sad that I moved from Flint Township out here to be involved now in a township that has no interest in what the residents want, what the residents that voted them in want. I hope that you board members stick up for us. It's obvious the supervisor will not. Please stick up for us. I voted for the man, and it didn't help. To be down to 1 police officer now, to have tried to get Echols to fire Drinkwine, and Echols said no, and then put Drinkwine up to full time, and then fire him over a verbal confrontation that I've heard he had videoed. So I don't know, I think it's kind of catching up to some individuals, but really happy to see Mr. Gilliger because things work a whole lot better when you're sitting in that chair. Thank you.
Absolutely.
My granddaddy told me he never hunted with junk hunters. I became a junk hunter tonight. So I owe this board an apology. And I owe Mr. Stevens an apology. My performance at the first set of questions was not very professional. My frustration with this board, my frustration with Mr. Stevens and his attitude got the better of it. Far better than that. I apologize to this board for what I said, and I will apologize to Mr. Stevens for what I said. Right, wrong, or indifferent, whether I like, dislike, agree, disagree, that was something I shouldn't have said.
Thank you, Greg.
Move on with the rest of the meeting. Move to the treasurer clerk's report. Nicole?
Right now, we're in the process of going through the fund balance program. We are basically taking the GL numbers and doing the breakdowns underneath them because we do have some accounts that need to be addressed as far as prior stuff of where funds or bills were paid from and stuff. So we are in the process of doing it. That's all I have.
Thank you, Nicole. Approval of the bills, pages 3 through 5A. Also, the bill for IT right that we had in the agenda. And I'll make the motion to pay the bills.
Support.
Supported by Stan. Any questions on the bills?
Okay, that, IT right now was how much again?
$919.
Okay, and then I just had one other.
That was a correction for the police department's software that is run only through IT right.
Yeah, I just want to add it to I did have one question on page 5A on mileage reimbursement. Who is that? That you?
That's for training, for when we went to, QBF.
Lansing.
Sorry, when we went for QBF training.
Okay, that's, yeah, it didn't say what it was for. It was
Yeah, sorry,
600 miles, and I
that's
just
what it
didn't know
was
what it
for.
went to.
It was, we gotta go to, Grand Rapids for training, Lansing 2 days, and, so that's the breakdown of it.
Thank you.
Nicole, do you have any receipts?
I do, I have them all.
Can we get a copy of those
Yep.
before we pass it? And then,
Yep, I'll have it for you tomorrow.
I think it said travel expenses. Travel.
We're talking,
Do greater than 30 miles on that,
what are you talking about? Where are you talking about?
your mileage reimbursement? Can I get a Google Maps on that? And then the township only reimburses 30 miles one way. So the 23 miles makes 2 reimbursement.
I'll get it to you.
And then, that should be 90, I haven't had any receipts on.
Did you put the credit in there? Because what happened was is there's a credit there too. They were supposed to fax over the bill. And, 15 or 1652.
So the first bill, it was 1652, that was a credit of 1652?
Yes.
So the 338.53 on that was the total bill? with
Yes.
the 1652 credit?
The 1652, yes.
Which one are we
I
talking
guess I'm confused.
Menards.
Oh, Menard.
I can run copies.
I see now, I just think that was a little confused. So that bill would be 322.01.
I asked her to fax me one when I talked to her on Friday, when I called, and she said that she would, and I called this morning, and she said that she would send one, but I don't have one at this point.
Mr. Chairman, when you get a chance, Jan and Eric both have a question. Where do you want to be? We're over here.
Okay, well, they was still talking.
I was wondering, when you talk to the person that taken the bridge, are they gonna be sending their support documents?
I got the receipts.
Are they gonna be doing it continuously?
I called her, she hasn't called me back.
Okay.
So, but I left her a message and told her that we were gonna need receipts from here on out, if she could make some kind of arrangements to fax them.
And then on the, Johnny on the spot, we've got one at the pavilion and one at the cemetery.
They're picking him up this week.
Are they good?
Yep.
What is rate home benefits?
Retiring insurance.
Retirement insurance, yeah.
Any other questions, Eric?
Yes, number 11, under Simon Figueroa and Parker LLC, for $5,811. Was curious. just know
Eric, I
about
kind of dug into that a little bit, just a heads up, and it looks like our bill technically for October was $23.92. For November was $36.53. I was gonna pull August and September somewhere, and there was still owing a previous balance, so it's gotta be in the August, September. So that would put us current up to date, but I wanna see where that balance is at prior to.
And we did have an overpayment with them, so, because of the bill being approved at the end of the month, our bills cross. That's one of the reasons we try to run off a little bit from some of the ones we have scheduled later, because what happens is our bills cross, and then it's like we owe more than what we do. So we did, I did ask, they request that they return the check, and so they did return the check, and the balance
I got one more question in regard to, Mike here can answer that. When you get calls, do you charge for anybody that calls to ask a question in regards to the business here?
Mr. Supervisor, the board, when you hired me, directed me in terms of who I could receive phone calls from. And so I believe it's any member of the township board, but members of the public, I did receive a phone call, but I don't believe that I billed for it. I told her I would not bill for it, and I hope I did not bill for it. I did? Well,
Sorry, I went through with it.
then that's something I'll clear up, because I shouldn't have done that.
Okay, thank you, Mike. We'll do a roll call vote on the bills.
Karen,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Stan,
Yes.
Rachel,
No.
Carrie.
Yes. Motion passed. Committee or department reports, John, did you have anything real fire report?
Nothing substantial, but interesting enough, we had 5 new candidates apply, and they're going through training, which is kind of surprising. As most of you know, we could use more firemen, particularly out here. And so it goes, it was nothing for quite a while, but all of a sudden, 5 people came forward that was interested in joining the fire department. So they're currently in testing and training, so it was all good, and they all, the chief felt pretty positive about a lot of those. And then just one other nice note, which might help in the future, they have an Explorers cadet program. You have to be between 14 and 18, but the group the chief has right now, he said been great. They've been helping with the fundraisers. He said they come in clean trucks. He said they've been great, and it might help have potential firefighters in the future. So if anyone knows anyone interested in that program, he's very happy with the cadets he has currently. I don't have anything.
Thank you, John. Julie, you had something from the library? Parks and Rec.
For the library, we didn't have a meeting, we didn't have a quorum, but we're having a meeting this Wednesday, because we have an item that we need to take care of, such as snow removal, between now and the next meeting, maybe. So then, at the Park and Rec meeting, we basically discussed not much. The ice rinks we're still waiting to put up. Oh, we also discussed where the ice rinks are going to go for this season, when it does go up. We're going to put it up there, behind the middle school, is 7th and 8th grade football field area, so that it can be watched and monitored by the police. They drive down Rogers Lodge there, and it's flat, and there's a fence around it.
I meant to ask you, how's the lighting over there?
From my understanding, their lighting's not very good. They have to pull up with their cars if they want to skate at night. But we're hoping that way, the reason they thought of putting it there is because to take it down, they can just take the sides off, and then it melts out, and then it just rolls off the brake, whatever lining it is. Rather than where it was at last year in the park, we had to cut it because people were trying to drive around it. And it was in the parking lot. People wanted to use the park, and the ice wasn't melted all the way. So moving it up there, we can just let it set and melt out naturally. Now the next issue is we're waiting for phone calls to say, okay, it's time to go put it up. With the weather we've had, it's not even gonna freeze up, to be able to skate on.
Can you check to see how level that ground was over there, because I know it's kind of hilly.
Tim Randall went over there, and I think he was gonna scope it out even more. He had a certain spot that he thought it would go in. So we're also buying a new liner for it because of last year's incident. So that's where we're at with Park and Rec. Also, we're not having another Park and Rec meeting until March.
I just have one question related to the library board.
Okay.
And you can get with me another time for that, but what I want to know is, out of the library, what percentage the county pays out of the millage wages, whatever, they partly pay. I'm interested in knowing that because in the future that, our library percentage is gonna come up for Thetford's portion. And I know it's based on, usage, but I would like to see what the county's paying out of that library bill. So that's the only part of the budget I'm interested in.
I'm not, I can
That's all
double
you
check.
can get that for me.
Okay, it's a good question. I do know that the library board, I believe they take care of the building, that's our maintenance. And then the Genesee County Libraries, which is also tax funded, they pay for the staffing and the materials in the building. So other than that, I can find
Yeah,
out if
I
that's.
just wanna see how it breaks down. I know the school system owns a building that we lease for a buck or whatever, but it's our job for the maintenance. I just
Right.
wanna see what the county is actually paying out of the millage.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess I didn't know, and now all of a sudden I'm thinking, I should know that, and I don't, so.
Right, well,
So I'm hoping you can help me figure that out.
new to the board also, so I'm figuring out some of the ins and outs of that board as well, so.
Thank you, Julie.
Thank you.
She also communicated between the board and our treasurer and clerk to get the previous bill paid for the year for the library and Parks and Rec. So that's, those checks will be in next month's bills. It's already pre-approved through our budget, but you'll see the notice of the check registry. Okay, under unfinished business, township closing schedule, page 6. You had a couple of changes to that, Nicole?
So we'll have to add May 5th, which is an election day, Tuesday, May 5th. Then we're gonna have to remove Thursday, December 25th, because it's gonna be on closed day. And Wednesday, which will be Friday, January 1st, New Year's Day. So those are the changes we're gonna have to make.
Would you repeat that, please?
Yes, Tuesday, May 5th is an election day, so we're gonna have to add that to the schedule. And, because there'll be 4 election days this year, I believe. And then, Friday, December 25th will be a holiday that we would automatically be closed, it'll be Christmas. And then Friday, January 1st will be New Year's Day. I took this schedule from the deputy treasurer that done the schedule prior, so.
And I compared it to the state closings, I mean, it's right there.
I did too, yeah.
Yeah, right.
And county.
But does everyone close every election day? Does every township close all the election days? Or do they, I'm curious.
Most of them do if they have voting going on in.
Building?
Yeah, and usually if it's more than 1%, is what I do.
Was there any other questions on this?
Are we honoring July 2nd?
It's on here.
Because I think July 4th falls on a weekend. I just want to make sure we're going to be open.
It will be open July 2nd. I believe if it falls on a weekend or a Friday and we're already closed, that you get the day before. That's how is why it's on here for Thursday, July 7th. Just checking the calendar.
Yeah, so it's on a Saturday. So,
You get the previous look.
technically, it states in there that it could be the Friday prior, but I think probably because we're already closed, she put it for the 2nd.
Or you can do it the 6th, which would be the Monday after.
They get one or the other. So just leave it as it stands, July 7th. Independence Day.
July 4th, closed.
Right, observe the second.
Repeat that again, please.
July 4th will be observed on July 2nd because it falls on a holiday. They get a day off, it'd be the previous work day or a day after. So it's 4th, it falls on the weekends. No, they will be working the election.
State law says you can now register to vote on the day of the election.
Yeah, so you'll be able to come and register.
The clerk's office will be open, but not
That
for
was what I asked.
taxes or the.
That was what I asked.
Okay. The clerk's available on election day.
Okay, so I'll make these changes around these changes.
Okay, yeah, we'll do a roll call vote on township closings in 2020.
Stan,
Yes.
Rachel,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
yes, Gary.
Yes. Okay, new business. We moved Telerico's from page 2 to the top of the new business.
Mr. Supervisor, if I can speak to that?
Okay,
Chris Christensen, who represents the Talaricos, is in the audience, and I told him we would try to move this up so we could get him out of here. There's some confusion or misinformation, as it's stated on this agenda, and so I think with his permission, that'll be adjourned to the January meeting. I'll let Chris.
Thank you, Mr. Gilder. Chris Christensen up here on behalf of the Talaricos. We did make a request before the zoning board, however, it was denied. However, the way this is stated, our request was for a correction, which would have resulted in a zoning change. And so I want to send a request to the township to look back into how that was phrased so that it properly comes before this board, because I believe it should be a correction and not just a request for the zoning. So my request would be that this be adjourned until January.
Mr. Chairman,
Eric.
if I may, were you referring, did you say a zoning board or did you mean the planning
I
commission?
apologize. Planning commission, if I did say zoning, it was planning commission.
Yep, okay, I just want to be very clear on that because they are two distinctly different boards. Yep, I thought you misspoke, I just wanted to clarify that. Okay, okay, no further questions.
Chris, whatever you submit, if you'll send me a copy.
I will, is it adjourned? I just didn't hear if that was
We will adjourn it to the next meeting in January 7th.
January 7th?
We moved our meetings to the first Tuesday in the new year of 2020.
Thank you very much. Mr. Gilder, I will.
And we'll be at 6:30.
Thank you.
John?
I'm just curious, and it may or may not be relevant at this point. So, Chris is gonna forward you some information regarding the changes that he wants to put before the planning commission?
Well-
Or is it the same information before the planning commission that he currently has?
That I don't know. That he and I have been in communication about this property over the last many months.
Right.
And this being on the agenda caught me by surprise a little bit, so he'll give me whatever it is that he wants the board to consider, and I'll feel better about that, advising you.
I see, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
A, under new business, to hire part-time FOIA coordinator, office help, up to 20 hours per week, $12 per hour.
I don't want to compare it. That's the question, but I'll second that, so we can move on to the question area.
Ready, John, questions?
I have a couple things. First, I'm in agreement, that we've had some issues with getting FOIAs, so I'm not directly opposed to having someone be involved in that. My second question, my part of this, do you have a candidate in mind currently?
We've actually interviewed a couple people so far, but
So, if I was going to go with a motion for that, though, I would like the motion to include that the FOIA coordinator is on a temporary basis with the approval of the board, which would mean, however Mr. Gilder would like to word that, I want it on a temporary basis, and the board will decide when that temporary is done. No individual but the entire board. So let's say 6 months from now, we say, you know, or a year from now, I feel that we can handle that in-house. I think that should be a board decision. So I'd like to see it worded accordingly that it's temporary and that the board will have some approval in the future. So however you want to word that, that makes that in a motion, that's how I'd like to see it.
Change your, retract your motion and do it over.
I would. Do you have any good wording for me for that?
No, not necessarily. I don't think it's necessary, because whatever you do is subject to change by a vote of the board in the future.
Okay.
If you wish to add some language just to eliminate all doubt and make it all clear, I would suggest you do it, let's say, 6 months.
Okay.
And at the 6 months, you can extend it, or you can do something else at that point in time.
Okay, then I'd amend my motion to, put a 6-month review.
May I ask where we're at with FOIA right now, and how far behind we are? Like, you don't have any FOIAs right now?
No, I have to finish up first thing. So I'm not sure what you want for the bank records, the way that the FOIA was submitted. So I did email her a copy, except for that.
Can't hear.
Can't hear you.
So I did email her the FOIAs, and, except for that portion right there, which I told her I would do, I just couldn't do it right at that point when she came home.
Is there 20 hours worth of work of all FOIAs a week? I guess.
It just depends.
It could be up to 20, it's not saying they're going to work 20 hours. This is other office stuff also.
It just depends.
If I may. Yes, thank you. You know, we're concentrating on this FOIA thing, and is that what you're gonna look for, is just someone to do the FOIA? Because if we need some help getting these books straightened up, because we don't know where we're at right now. So I really appreciate if we look for someone, I don't care if it costs a few dollars more, but we're paying way too much money to Plant Moran, it's $100 an
We're
hour.
actually looking into a CPA once the treasurer retires. The treasurer's mentioned she's wanting to retire in January. We're gonna lose our treasurer and our deputy treasurer. So the Plant Moran has suggested a CPA or someone to help the treasurer's department. That won't be a FOIA coordinator.
Do you make bankruptcy attorney too? Well, I'm more worried about catching up, getting this caught up, so that we know where we're at. You know, we don't know what our balances are right now because of the problems we had previously, which I'm not gonna put any figures, but.
We're working on one thing at a time here. We can't get 3 people.
Well, that's what I'm saying, the FOIA is that critical, I mean, is that all they're gonna do is,
No, it says right here, and office help.
okay, so, but I'd like to see the definition of office help, and then it just reading residents coming in, are they going to work on trying to get this process caught up?
The clerk, the deputy clerk are working on that with someone from Plant Moran right now.
Was there a support to John's motion? Seemed like he just went right into discussion.
Did you support that amendment to add 6 months review?
Yes.
Oh, Gary did, Nicole?
Nicole made the motion, you made the second.
Okay, cool.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Here?
Yeah, I'm all about hiring additional help if there's been an overload in the FOIA requests, which I'm aware that there has been. I certainly want to help in any way you get through this, but I also, I personally do not feel that a trustee of this township should have to fill out a FOIA for a simple request of information that was public. And, you know, I just want to make sure or make this point out, you know, vocally and publicly now, so in the future, you know, we don't have any issues. I haven't had any issues yet, but I'm just saying, like, I just don't feel that, I just feel that a trustee should be able to come in and if the residents are confused about something, and the trustee should be able to just clear it up, you know, quickly by just asking, and then the information just can be handed over and so forth. I don't feel like a trustee should have to fill out a FOIA request.
I don't recall any trustees who hired. In the past, I've heard of it. That was several years ago.
And I don't have a problem, you know, opting this in, but then But then after I vote for this, you know, if I come in, the township, and I ask for some information, and, you know, I'm forced to fill out a FOIA request, I'll be a little bit upset, and I'll probably bring it up at the next meeting.
On this, the 6 months, then why do we have to put a time limit on it? Because basically, if we're caught up, we shouldn't need it any more than that. I mean, are we putting a deadline after 6 months, it's gonna be brought before the board to see whether we renew
Well,
it?
that would be my intent, Stan, is just to have it reviewed, so, you know, you or me, or we come in and we see this person is, you know, off back, you know, you would say, well, that's not such a good plan, but if we don't have any review process, you know, you would, you know, if the FOIAs don't get filled, and the extra help, or maybe even, you know, by then, Nicole, they may not be happy, or they, you know, whatever, but at least it'll be up for review, and it should be, and I feel it should be reviewed by the board, all of us, you know, as, cause, you know, you're gonna have pretty good feedback if it's working or not working, so that was my intent.
Do a roll call vote.
Can I address the attorney for just a second on the FOIA situation? Since there's so much misconception on FOIA and how it works, and everybody has input on it and everything, what exactly does the FOIA, rules and regulations, I guess, what I want, just, can you give us a little synopsis?
Well, there's an awful lot there.
I know.
To unpack. In a nutshell, identifiable records can be requested, and if they're not exempt from disclosure, they're supposed to be produced. The township has so many days to respond to a FOIA request. They have options in terms of charging people, seeking extensions. There's an appeals process, but you know, beyond that, unless there's a specific question, I could go on and on and on about what the statute does.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Do a roll call vote.
Okay, Eric,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Rachel, no, Stan,
Yes.
Gary,
Yes. B, under new business, is to hire a part-time code enforcer up to 20 hours per week at $14 per hour. Now, make a motion that we hire a code enforcer at $14 an hour, up to 20 hours, possibly do less. Any other questions on that?
Yes, now, how are we gonna work the code enforcer in regards to, are you going by complaints, or is this code enforcer gonna drive around for 20 hours a week and find, where he's got a problem?
4 week per complaints and wife that is, objectives through the past years that haven't got corrected.
Well, I don't understand, is he gonna come, he, she, or whoever it is, are they gonna show up on a daily basis until they get their 20 hours?
No, as requested by the supervisor.
Pardon?
As requested by the supervisor.
Are they gonna have their own vehicle, or?
Yes, they'll use their own vehicle.
Okay, do they need any requirements for a code enforcer?
I don't believe so. Is there any requirements for code enforcement?
No, but I do have a question, and it may just be a bit of information, but is this to start the process of hiring, or is there a specific individual thought of for that role?
it's just to start the process.
Yes, to start the process, maybe interview a couple different
Okay.
people until we find the right one.
So I would, that's not hiring, and I would suggest that the motion be not to hire, but to start the process of looking into options for hiring a code enforcement officer. I think it would be better defined if it comes back to you with so-and-so, and these are the credentials, and this is what they'll be doing. So if that's the intent, that would be best expressed in the motion.
Okay. Okay, I'll change my motion to, looking into hiring part-time code enforcer up to 20 hours per week at $14 an hour. Second. Okay.
What does it say now? It says they're gonna.
Looking into part-time code enforcer up to 20 hours per week at 14 hours an hour.
Mr. Chair, this is a building inspector.
Code enforcer, ordinance and codes.
Okay. Is that a police officer? Or
No, it doesn't have to be, no.
Is it a police officer or a building inspector?
Either. Code enforcer.
Please, sir.
No, there's no requirement.
Can just be any layman person that would be considered a code enforcer.
Can't hear you.
Mr. Supervisor, are you gonna bring the applications back to the board?
We have to look into seeing if there's anyone that we could suggest to the board.
You're gonna list that in your, add ordinance / code enforcement, is that what you're gonna list?
Yes.
Okay.
Any other questions? We'll do a roll call vote on that too also.
Stan,
No.
Rachel,
No.
Eric,
No.
John,
Yes.
Nicole, yes, Gary.
Yes.
Did the motion pass or not? Can we get it reported, please? That's required.
Motion 3-3. Did not pass.
Motion failed.
Account signatory. Page 7.
And Mr. Supervisor, I can explain this if you'd like.
Yes, sir.
So I'm the one who prepared this resolution. In the last little bit, I've heard from both the clerk and the treasurer, just asking some questions about each having access to the records of the other, so that each can do their job. And so I spoke with Pam at Plant Moran and asked how is something like that best handled, what would be her suggestions? And what I put before you is what she suggested, which is that the clerk would have read-only access to the banking account information of the township. The treasurer would have read-only access to the general ledger information held by the clerk. The reason that is so is there has to be internal controls. So both sides should be allowed to have access to the other, but each should not be able to take action with respect to the other. So the read-only access is, you have access to it, but you can't act on it. And so what I have before you, as I said, was ran past and approved by the auditor, and hopefully achieves that.
Thank you, Mr. John?
I just have one question. And do we currently have read-only, or do we currently have access within those departments? You couldn't, but could you, if you could you access?
If I could, yeah, but
If you
I
always
haven't,
could.
yeah.
I just want to know if it currently, so this would be a change for us to have that, someone, we would have to have our software guy go in there and change that, so that.
Yeah, but I don't think that being said, I don't think that any of the records are in the computer. So I'm not sure as far as like how the accounts are reconciled, stuff in the treasurer's office, none of that is on computer, it's all done by hand. So, for the fund balance program, the clerk does is all computerized. So, but as far as the treasurer's office, it's all done by hand, so I'm not sure how to answer that question.
Yeah, well, and I don't know, we're gonna have to implement this, and I don't know all what that entails, but it certainly makes sense to me that each has the ability to see the information held by the other, so that you can do your respective jobs, so.
Should we put this into motion that it's acted on this direction? That we resolve the regard to bank accounts and general ledger?
That would be the resolution, that would be, someone would resolve to do or make a motion to do that, and then that would be reflected in the minutes. And again, how that would be implemented, we have to work further with our audit. But-
Okay, and I believe the reason this keeps showing up on our agenda is that there are previous clerks and deputy clerks that haven't been removed from bank accounts, and the new clerk added. And a lot of banks won't take the new clerk's signature unless it's done with township approval of adding the clerk to the accounts. I think it has to be a double
May I,
type, a motion for one and then the resolution that you present tonight.
so are you guys not giving each other the material needed? Nicole?
I print off the revenue and the deputy prints off the, revenue and expenditure chart when she, dresses that she needs it, but I have not seen a bank statement since I've been here.
Okay. Because after I had spoke with the treasurer, she told me that an email was sent to you regarding getting on one of the accounts because I questioned her about
I have
it.
one, I'm on two, and I just went this week to get on the other one. But I haven't received any confirmation. The lady that I was supposed to see was not there, and so she told me to sign the signature card, which I did. I presented my ID and gave her that information. She said she would follow up with me. Did call her yesterday and left a message. Have not heard anything back. But I'm
Was that the
not.
last and final account you needed to be added
No,
on
no, that's only three of, there's several. So this one is just a CD that I just got put on, Tuesday when I went. So, but there are other accounts that I'm not on. So,
I'd like to ask the attorney, does that access be available to all board members?
No.
Why is that?
Because what we're talking about are the statutory duties of the clerk and the treasurer. That doesn't prohibit other members of the township board from asking questions about bills and receiving some source documentation, but each of those offices have statutory duties, and in order to do it, each needs access to some information held by the other. And so this simply is designed to make sure that each has that information.
I've also read that when you reconcile bank statements, it has to be someone other than the clerk or the treasurer. That the reconciliation, there should be someone that is not involved with the.
Excuse me, I can't hear because of the conversation out there. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I've read that when you reconcile, you get the bank statements, that there should be either someone that's not involved in the handling of money to be there when each one of them, the clerk and the treasurer, reconcile. Is that?
I'm not able to answer it. I'm not an accountant, I don't know. I know that someone from Plant Moran will be here tomorrow to answer some questions, but Stan, I'm sorry, I don't know that.
Yeah, I'll make the motion to resolve the resolution to regarding bank accounts and general ledger, that the township treasurer shall have read-only access to the general ledger, and the township clerk shall have read-only access to all township bank accounts.
I'll support that.
May I also ask one more question?
Yes.
Is it gonna be up to you to provide this to the treasurer and up to the treasurer to provide it to you?
Yes.
yeah,
Okay. And then right now, that's how it should be though, correct?
correct.
It's a time issue between you guys?
No, we submit the revenue and expenditures report to her. So I just don't, I'm just basically paying bills and I don't know what's there because I have not seen a, bank statement. So.
Roll call vote.
Stan,
Yes.
Rachel,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Flo, yes, Gary.
Yes.
Okay, motion passed.
Okay,
Nicole, I didn't hear your vote answered. Can you-
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, motion passed.
Okay, as far as account signatory, we need to make, I'll make the motion that we get Nicole added to all the bank accounts, the clerk, and previous signatures removed that are no longer on board or employed. I believe we did, but I don't think we took a vote on it. I think it was at a previous meeting, but we didn't get a vote on it, so that's why it came up again. Do I get a second on that?
Is there a time? Are we gonna put a time on this?
Well, hopefully before the treasurer leaves at the end of January. If you want to put a time to it, before the treasurer leaves. Is there a second on that? No, this is a whole new, account signatory.
I thought that was this.
No, the resolution was for the bank accounts for general and general ledger. There are banks that want in our minutes stating that we want the clerk added to these accounts, is why this is being requested. If they get a copy of our minutes that was voted on and this board approves the clerk to be added to the bank accounts.
This is line item C, account signatory?
Yes.
And
When I was working on the resolution, I guess it should have been added in as a supplement.
Yeah,
well, that's not, right, that's why I'm confused,
Yeah,
right,
well,
because it's like.
It's two separate issues, but it's still the same bank accounts.
Okay,
Is what
well,
we're dealing with.
okay, well, I understand that, but for sure, it should have been a separate line item on the agenda. I would, and then.
The page was added after the agenda was made.
Do we have the page in front of us right now?
No, the page number 7.
Oh,
was
that's,
added.
okay, okay.
This was on the agenda and then the page was added to it, so it should add two separate lines,
Right, that's what I'm saying, right,
okay?
okay. So it's,
I mean, the clerk is leaving in January, or the treasurer.
I'm with you.
I need someone on the bank account other than someone that's gone.
Okay.
Why don't we add that to the agenda?
Oh, you want to cut it right to the hair, okay, fine.
Well, I mean, we could.
We'll table this.
We could, I'm not opposed to talking through this, I just wanna make sure I'm clear on what I'm
We'll take it all the way.
voting.
Under D, proposed ordinance per marijuana. Mr. Gilner to explain. Page 8.
So, I am aware that over the last couple of months, there's been continued conversation about marijuana and the township's response to the most recent state legislation concerning it. I was forwarded, or I was given some information indicating that there's a great deal of confusion in Thetford Township about what the township's position is. And so I was asked to suggest some definitive action, at least as of today's date. And what I put before you is that suggestion. It is a one-page ordinance, which indicates that no marijuana establishments as defined by the Michigan Regulation and Taxation of Marijuana Act are permitted within the boundaries of the township. And that would take effect immediately. I also indicated when I was told to, or asked to prepare something like this, what would be the impact of this? And it's really quite simple. This would say there's nothing allowed in the township as of this date. This can be changed at any point in the future. It can be changed next month. It can be changed in February, anytime thereafter. My suggestion is that it is better to have something like this in place than a resolution where it's under study or it's being adjourned or what have you. When you opt in, that typically is done through zoning. you all know how long it took you to adopt an ordinance on the last marijuana issue, and how much public input you had, and all of the steps that you went through. So frankly, I would be surprised if the township were to opt in without it, taking the time to do all of that. So to eliminate any confusion or doubt, this expresses your intent right now. To the extent it matters, to those that I spoke with that were asking questions about it, my understanding is the township will in fact proceed to study and have a discussion and figure out a plan for this. But this is to make clear what your intention is right now, if you adopt it. And this is only for you to consider.
John?
Did, have you or can you prepare a list of those steps? Or, I don't know, maybe perhaps you already have. But I'm interested in the steps by steps, the public hearings, the planning commission. Do you have that information where you could pass that on to the board members?
Of course, yes.
Okay. All right, so I'd like to see a copy of that when you get a chance, if you could have someone put it in our boxes.
The businesses and the residents would like somewhat of a time frame where we can establish an ordinance for the recreational marijuana.
So if you're going to do that, as you did with your last ordinance, that was done through zoning, which really starts with the planning commission. So yes, I'll get to you those steps starting at the planning commission. My suggestion is then that the board refer this topic to the planning commission for consideration, so that it jumpstarts it and puts it on their agenda, if that's what you wish to do.
May I ask, did we not talk about this in October? And weren't we given another ordinance to review?
Thank you.
And now we are bringing this back to the, so I guess I feel like we're running in circles.
What it is we gave ourselves 60 days to get it done, and it's just not feasible to get an ordinance done in 60 days.
Especially when you don't have the meeting.
So you wanna opt out again?
Mr. Gantos, any more outbursts, and you'll be asked to leave the room.
I said nothing.
Get aggressive now, Gary.
You have 13 months to figure this
You also, Mr. Russell.
Mr. Chairman,
John?
let me sort of add something in there. That tentative ordinance that Mr. Gillen provided could be used as a stepping stone to give to the planning commission to work from, if we was to start the process once I get all the steps. But if that was a step, you could use what he's already created as a step-off point to give to them. So it's not in vain, I guess, is my point of
I guess
that.
that's probably what I expected tonight, was to bring that back to the board and that to be discussed.
The effective date on this, the effective date on this, what is that today's date, 30 days later on this ordinance, or?
No, this would take effect, this ordinance that I prepared, if adopted, would take effect 30 days after publication. So it'd have to be published, and it'd be 30 days thereafter. Yeah.
Mr. Chairman.
Eric?
Okay, so I suppose, what is the, I'm kind of like at a loss as to what is the point of an opt-out ordinance, because it seems like we had every intent to opt in, and I was under the assumption that the township had intended to move forward with that. I mean, every indication just from what little information I gathered from each one of you, just seemed to think that we were opting in. And then all of a sudden, we get to October, and all of a sudden it's a no vote, and I kind of see this as a moot point, and I'll name off a few reasons why. Number one, I don't think, even if we move forward without an option or without an ordinance, I don't think that the sky is going to fall. I don't think people are going to be harmed in any way. Certainly, the fear that someone can just apply on any piece of property and just get approved by the state. I don't think that's a fear or a concern at all, because we have to give permission to anybody that is approved for one of these licenses anyway. what I see as the issue is that this just holds up the other establishments that have already gotten the green light. I think Laura, the state of Michigan, or Laura, has put out a bulletin that they intend to move forward with the applications and approvals for January 1st. I would think that under the current situation, I think that all we're doing is kind of shooting ourselves in the foot. I mean, just to give you an example, I think that we could argue this till we're kind of blue in the face, but we could actually be collecting the revenue generated from them in the meantime while we discuss this in a committee. I mean, I'll just give you just one case in point example. I mean, just the small community of Everett, and I know that we're not a Detroit or an Ann Arbor or a Lansing, so I didn't use that as an example by context. But just in the rec sales of that one Everett provisioning center, just in the one day, I mean, I already did the math on that. Our share of revenue for just that one day was $1,500. So you're just potentially just taking all that money and throwing it away, or we're just not collecting it. I mean, the state could be collecting it. The state already has statutes that require the Department of Treasury to put that money into specific accounts. That money then gets sent to the corresponding municipality from the state. Even though I didn't originally make my decision based on any kind of money or financial gain to the township, I just want to make it a point now that we have gotten to this point. It seems like a moot point from my point of view to not collect revenue when we clearly have already approved the facilities that are already on track to be approved. And I'll just make another note that we're right after we get done with this topic, we're going to approve, I think there are 3 or 4 new, or maybe even 5 new facilities on our list for approval tonight. So we're going to approve them tonight, but yet, and remember, there's no tax revenue in the medical. So just because we approved medical already doesn't mean that we receive revenue from that. And I'm not talking about actual permit fees, I'm just talking about actual revenue stream. So I just pointing that out. Everyone keeps talking about how little money we have, but yet I understand. So that's the point.
If I may, it's not necessarily a money thing. You're looking at it from the money side. I'm looking at it from a different direction, in the sense of there's a lot of people that are speaking out one way or the other. It's a hard decision to make, but
I think it's
I will not sell my soul for money, and that's how I feel about it.
For the vote of the people.
The people will have the opportunity this coming year to vote us out, and start over again, because you can
Already voted it in.
You can always change
Voting it
things.
in, not voting you out. Jim.
We already took a vote.
We took a vote on this exact ordinance.
Not everyone at once.
But I'm saying we took a state vote. I'm saying you guys are going against that.
I was just trying to make a point to Eric's concern is, if we couldn't physically get through the process, it's gonna take months just to get through the process of posting it and having the public hearings, and, so you definitely can't do that today.
Well, one of my concerns are, the state has certain regulations, but they don't say who is the enforcer of the regulations.
Yes, they do.
Well, they do, I have not seen that,
Eric,
so,
what's that?
that's
If you guys want to
I'm just confused on the whole situation. I mean, even prior to, when we talked about this ordinance, I would have rather have seen something along those lines, at least to let me think businesses are already established with their medical marijuana licenses. And so we can build our ordinance to where it needs to be. I mean, I understand we have a lot of work in front of us, but I feel like we're running in circles. Obviously, it's 2 months. I have to see
Correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Gunner, I believe you can't let people go into business and then change the rules after they're in business.
Well, you can, but then they become a legal non-conforming use, which is subject to some rules. But let me try to clear up some misconceptions. First of all, the ordinance that is before you relates only to the 2018 legislation. There have been, I think, 3 separate Michigan statutes on the subject of marijuana. Provisioning centers, and some of those were the subject of what you previously adopted. This is a new subject matter. And that act from 2018 says that a municipality may completely prohibit or limit the number of marijuana establishments within its boundaries, and then it says that you can regulate. We all use the phrases opt in or opt out. It's just easy to say, but to opt in, for example, you have to specify what are you opting in. Are you letting one of those marijuana establishments or all 6? Are you letting them in any location that they want throughout the township or in only certain areas? What are their operational restrictions? Those are the sorts of things that this township debated at length with the previous state statute. So to simply say, well, let's opt in right now. First of all, you can't do it if you're regulating it through zoning, which you did before. Number 2, I don't think you can do that unless you know exactly what are you opting into and what are those restrictions. And so all this is designed to do is not shut the door on that forever, but is to clear up that until such time as the township sets those rules, you're opting out, which the state statute allows you to do.
Mr. Supervisor, may I ask what happened to the ordinance that we paid for? And why that's not presented in front of us tonight? Because I thought it
Because
was,
it has to go through planning, Rachel. It was just explained to you.
but are we?
It will have to go to public hearings, it will have to go to planning.
Right, the difference, I think, Rachel, what you're asking is that the current ordinance that we have in front of us does not need a public hearing, and it does not need a notice.
And
So
the
we
one we
could
passed
adopt, we could adopt this
60 days.
tonight if we wanted to. And then, of course, later on, draft an ordinance. I don't have a problem drafting an ordinance, and I don't have a problem doing that. I just think that at this venture of the game, whether it's a fumble on our part or a fumble on the state's part, look, we could probably toss a lot of blame around as to how this got delayed or put to the point that it's at. But at this point, just losing money and just throwing money out the door just does not seem like the fiscal responsible thing to do with this decision. I think that you can collect the tax revenue while you draft the ordinance. I don't think the sky's going to fall. I don't think I don't think you're going to see anything alarming or any problems. I think that you're going to just see a few businesses that have just been waiting for a long, long, long time, put their applications in, and the state will approve them, and it's not going to, no one's going to notice anything. It's just going to put more money in our account. That's all. And I really don't care about the money, but I want to just bring it to everyone's attention because I think that was the purpose of that this board voted for it in the first place. It was about the money when they looked at it to begin with. And I just think that this is a bad decision, given the state has already opted in. I think the residents have just spoken last November. I think that's it.
Do we need to do this ordinance to extend our 60 days till we draft this, or do we just go on what we have?
No, this is separate and apart from that, and this would really control. This would say, as of this date, you are electing not to have them, and then if you'd like, you can take the draft ordinance that was not looked at by anyone at the township. It was really the product of Chris's imagination, quite honestly, and refer that to the planning commission to jumpstart the process. That would be my suggestion, so that there's no time wasted.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we put the drafted ordinance to the planning commission to get the process started.
You gonna adopt this or something?
No.
I'll support.
Okay, further questions on this?
I do have one for the attorney.
Okay.
So, by not doing this currently, and putting that off to the planning commission, does that put us in a liability situation because you're in limbo land?
I don't see that you're incurring any liability. I think, again, what I was told, and I saw a press statement that there was uncertainty about the subject here. I think if you don't pass this ordinance, but you refer something out, there's still that uncertainty that exists. So my suggestion would be, it's really twofold. Take the draft ordinance that you saw, refer it to planning commission for consideration, for public hearing, and so on. And separately, put this in place. And then once you're ready to have something to adopt, then you would adopt it and this ordinance would go away. So that everyone is clear about where you stand on the subject.
Okay,
So he's suggesting you do both.
okay. Okay, well, we have a motion and a second on the table.
For which, so which thing is motion?
The motion says the draft.
Submit the
Read
draft
the
to
motion.
planning commission to get the ball started.
Mr. Speaker, would you have the clerk read the motion?
Okay.
Thank you, Greg.
I didn't
Stand.
hear it. I think, explain what we're gonna be, the way I heard it.
Can't hear you.
We should-
Cannot hear you, sir.
We should be doing this first and then go into the planning commission.
Whether you do that first or the other one, to me, it doesn't matter, as long as you do it
Exactly.
tonight at the meeting. So
Okay, but it has to be with this one also.
I would suggest it, that's all I'm
Yeah, that's
suggesting.
what I thought, okay. I want to be clear.
Okay, John?
Well, I'm just gonna brief and then we can do a vote, but I just think, the concern is, that what is our intent? And by your motion shows our intent. You know, and I think for the majority of the board, that's always been our intent. We wanna be careful and we wanna be safe. So I like both programs. I'm done.
Which one are we voting on first?
We're gonna vote on not the ordinance, to send it to the
Okay.
planning board
All
on
right,
the
so
drafted.
once if that passed, and then this ordinance doesn't pass, what is the result of that?
The result would be that
That will still go to the planning board.
it would still go to the planning board, and then you wouldn't have adopted an ordinance opt-in or opt-out. And then it would be up to people to decide really where are you.
We'll do a roll call vote on this.
Mr. Speaker, would you have the clerk read the ordinance, please? Or, I'm
It's not
sorry,
the
the
ordinance.
motion.
Read the motion.
Read back the motion.
Okay, so they want to, basically adopt both of them and submit to the planning commission to see, or the planning board to see what will transpire from there.
It's in the drafting.
Gary made the motion to send the drafted ordinance that we received in our packets at the last board meeting to the planning commission for review.
Prior ordinance.
Is your motion to adopt both at the same time? Do
No,
that?
we're gonna do them two separate.
Two separate issues.
Okay.
Thank you, Nicole.
Will there be a reading on that?
Ask the question of the attorney, is that possible?
Sure.
Sir, hi, I'm Gary Goodman, I'm one of the owners of medical marijuana facility.
Can you go to the podium so we can all hear you, sir, please?
I'm one of the owners of one of the facilities in Thetford Township.
Use the mic a little better, sir.
10-009-2 North High. It's my understanding, and again, I am not the writer of the law. I try to get my own understanding, I am an attorney. But my understanding of the law is that you're a medical township. The township passed a medical ordinance. If you have that, you had to have an opt-out ordinance in place by November 1st. If it's November 2nd, if it's December 16th, it's too late under state law. They're automatically opted in. But I have no problem with this process. But attorneys have told me that are in this business that what happened on October 28th was a moratorium, not an ordinance. And there is already a competitor of mine that has the state license to sell rec, and they're waiting for the state to show up and inspect, and they're open for business, while I can't be, according to what you're trying to do here. And so, if there's one in open, the others need to open as well, because it's already, the Pandora's box has already been opened. This is my understanding of the law. I'd love to hear from you, to understand why one has already been approved by the state, because there wasn't anything legally done properly by November 1st of 2019. And the rest of us are waiting to be able to, I could have done it, I could have acted the same way. And possibly the state approved me, and I'm ready to open in a couple of weeks like one of my competitors are. But I waited to hopefully that this township board acted so that we all could be on the same scale. You have facilities that I'm competing with that are unlicensed, that you're not shutting down, and they're operating, and they don't even have a state license, that are in your township. So they're not paying any fees or any application fees or anything to you. So I'm just trying to understand what the law is, council, in regards to allowing one entity to open their shop recreational, starting probably the first week of January, here in Thetford Township, because of the determination by the state themselves, the marijuana regulatory board, law, that they're allowed to open, because there wasn't the appropriate action by the board. And so I don't know what we're doing here to stop everyone else from just applying to the state, getting the same approval, and everything you're trying to do here is meaningless. So I'm trying to maybe short circuit that and maybe potentially allow this board to say, we're gonna allow the 5 or 6 that we've approved while we send to the planning commission something else before we issue any other application. Potentially, that might be a better way to go. But to allow one to open and the rest of us to watch the business go down the street, and for us all to fail while you're taking 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months. I have no clue how long this is going to be, and they're gonna have, cars down Dordt Highway, while they operate legally, recreational. And so you're all gonna have the rest of us do the same thing. You've already gotten approved, they've already gotten approval for recreational. They're opening the door.
Yeah, somebody signed the paperwork.
So I'm just wondering how that's possible legally. I'm trying to be respectful. I've always been here wanting to be a good neighbor, wanting to work with the township board. I'll wait my turn. And I understand my turn will come. I think this board is pretty near unanimous in terms of allowing recreational to come into the township and allow significant dollars to help this township grow and to help their schools and their library and the township board and everything else, that the roads and everything else that we can help. And specifically law enforcement. A lot of the extra 10% excise tax goes to law enforcement, and as I'm hearing, you're down to 1 or 2 police officers, allow you to clearly step that up. But what I have a question of is, if the state's already said you guys didn't act properly by November 1, and they've already given a license to do so, recreational, what are the rest of us supposed to do? Simple question.
What do we have to know?
Just for the record, I concur.
So, like everything on this subject, there's much debate about what is allowed, what isn't allowed. And I have heard the statement that if a township or a municipality does not adopt something by November 1st or whatever that date is, you've lost your opportunity. There is an equal number of people who say that they can't find that written anywhere in the law. And further, that the state issuing licenses versus this township granting zoning approval are 2 very different things. So all I will acknowledge at this point is that debate on that subject. And I don't think that's going to be answered definitively until some additional time passes. In terms of facilities that are operating, again, I don't have personal knowledge about any of that. I know that we have had in this state 3 separate statutes dealing with 3 separate subjects on marijuana, and it can be confusing. We had medical marijuana in 2008, then we had the marijuana facilities in, I don't know what year, and then the recreational marijuana in 2018, each with their different requirements and provisions. So my recommendation to this board is, as stated, which is, instead of there being ambiguity, while these two sides debate whether you're in or you're out, make it clear, while at the same time, you refer that matter to the planning commission for debate and consideration forthwith.
Would we be in any sort of trouble